watching KPVI, news that works for you.
Hello and thanks for watching this special edition of KPVI News, a look back at 2020. I'm Matt Davenport. Over the next hour, we'll take a look at the big news stories that happened in eastern Idaho over the last year, along with some of our more memorable stories. So 2020 was quite a roller coaster for the world of local sports as the pandemic put a big dent in athletics, but it certainly made us appreciate the games that we love a little bit more. Journalist Corinne McGrath takes a look back on the highs and lows of the year 2020.
After going 13-7 in conference play, the Idaho State women's basketball team fell to the Idaho Vandals in the semifinals of the Big Sky Conference Championships. The ISU men went 4-16 in the Big Sky, but went on to upset Northern Arizona 64-62 in the first round. The Big Sky men's tournament just wrapped up, and what an exciting game it was. But the Idaho State men, nor would any of their opponents, get the chance to try and win a Big Sky championship and move on to the NCAA tournament, as the COVID-19 virus spread across the country, taking with it the games we love.
I think it would have been nice maybe to postpone it and see, but at the same time, we don't really know the timetable for how long this is going to take.
Affecting every level of athletics.
I'm kind of getting emotional because we're not going to have a senior season.
In order to keep the community and players safe, we made sacrifices.
I described it. It was literally like sitting there and taking a fastball to the ribs.
And we adapted.
We can see the writing on the wall, and we are anticipated to move forward with a full schedule of events at Melaleuca Field without Chuckers baseball.
We worked harder.
He's tired of sitting around, so he wanted to come out and do some conditioning and get some exercise, and then it's grown.
And we made changes.
The Pocatello-Chubbuck School District Board of Trustees voted to retire the Pocatello Indians mascot at the end of the school year.
I think Thunder is really versatile.
We tried to improve in ways we could.
I didn't even sleep last night. I was so excited to be here today to dedicate Davis Field.
Remembering to not take the sports we love for granted.
It's a lot of just really raw emotion because they didn't know when they were going to be able to play again.
I've been pretty careful about this all to get here right now.
A lot of unknowns all the way around.
Crossing our fingers about all the time we're playing.
Although this year has been full of difficult decisions,
the Big Sky President's Council made the decision to postpone the Big Sky Conference football season to the spring.
And athletes are missing packed stadiums. It was quiet without fans in the stands, but both the guys from Boise State and Utah State knew that this season may not have even happened this year. And there continues to be bumps on the road.
Nuts, like you feel like you're getting hit from every angle.
We have rolled with the punches.
You can't really play boxing, you know what I mean? You can play football, you can play basketball, but not so much boxing.
We continue to stay together while staying apart.
A benefit golf scramble at the Highland Golf Course raised an additional $11,000.
We got back on the horse.
It's just so exciting that we get to run. This is my home track. I've been in Oklahoma, and there's nothing like running at home.
Staying positive when it felt like things were only going downhill.
Today we have the cookie race.
We brought the ball back into our court.
The Idaho State comes into Manhattan and takes down the Wildcats. What a win for the Bengals.
And we came back stronger.
Sports journalist Corinne McGrath. Well, in August, we introduced you to Noah Fernandez. Noah loves his sister Josie, who has a rare form of epilepsy. You could say her life landed her a lemon. So Noah made lemonade, lots of lemonade. Here's Julian Paras.
Well, I really love her, and she goes through a lot of hard times, but she's still happy.
Noah Fernandez hosted a lemonade stand to raise money for his sister Josie, who has MMPSI, a rare diagnosis of epilepsy. But Noah still sees little Josie as his baby sister.
I like to cuddle, I like to play toys with her, and I like to watch shows with her.
According to Jordan Fernandez, the father of Noah and Josie, the idea for the lemonade stand was all Noah's.
He's always wanted to do something for his sister, and it was actually his idea to come up with a fundraiser that we can raise it for epilepsy.
From what the family knows, Josie has a KCNT1 gene mutation, which results in potassium flowing at an excessive rate through brain cell membranes. Finding the right treatment or prescription for her epilepsy has been challenging, but they say they have a good team that works with them. And they also do their part to help Josie whenever they can.
It's definitely been tough. It was an eye-opener. It's nothing that we knew with pregnancy, so when we had Josie, everything was an eye-opener. But what we've tried to do, every one of us, as part of the family, is try to learn as much as we can about it.
And for them, and for a lot of people, Josie is a blessing.
As much as it's been hard, she's a blessing. You know, she gives out just as much love as she gets, and I believe she gets a lot.
Friends, family, co-workers, even nurses who helped with Josie in the past showed their support. The result was more than what the family expected.
This is huge. Originally, we thought it would just be a little neighborhood lemonade stand, and to see the outpouring of support from Josie's old nurses, co-workers, everything. It's been really wonderful to see people come out and support Josie as well as other people with epilepsy.
And if there were any words of wisdom that Noah would offer to others dealing with epilepsy in some aspect, it's this.
Be brave, be strong, and don't give up.
And over that weekend in August, over $1,200 was raised for Josie. And coming up next on this look back at 2020, we'll check in with a local construction project that may have been waiting for decades.
You're watching KPVI, news that works for you.
And welcome back to our look back at the 6 biggest news stories on 6 in 2020. Well, in September of 2017, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announced that the temple would be built in Pocatello. And in March of 2019, there was a ceremonial groundbreaking. KPVI News that works for you journalist Deanne Coffin shows us the construction progress over the last year.
History was made as thousands gathered for the groundbreaking of the new Pocatello Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple back on March 16th of 2019. The Pocatello Temple will be the church's 6th temple in Idaho. Elder Gifford Nielsen, the first counselor in the North America Central Presidency, says it's the 174th temple groundbreaking in the history of the church. He says the temple provides a spiritual foundation for the community.
We have seen this time and time again, that wherever a temple is located, you will see tremendous spiritual growth in a community, and it just seems like hearts soften and miracles happen, and you will see it with this temple.
Elder Wilford Anderson, president of the North America Central area, says the views of the valley are spectacular.
We've heard so many good things about Pocatello and the people here, but it just thrills us to see this kind of unity, and we hope it continues.
Service missionaries for the Pocatello Temple, Elder Roger Pruitt and his wife Glenda Pruitt, oversee the construction of the temple while making sure the temple gets built to the church's specifications and standards. The Pruitts say they are pleased with the progress being made on the new temple.
We're right on our schedule. And so as the temple finishes up on the outside, the inside won't be far behind that. You know, we have anywhere from 100 to 150 workers here every day now, and very, very many of those are inside working in the temple.
The Pruitts tell me we're about 2 years into the construction process of this 68,000 square foot temple, and they say about 75% of the stonework is complete.
We have the west side yet to complete for stone, and then the spire. We've begun working on the spire stone as well.
The spire is the tall steeple at the top of the temple. The Pruitts say the COVID pandemic has had little effect on the construction process of the temple.
We have our mask and they take temperatures every day, and we're just, they're moving right along.
Before the pandemic, the Pruitts were doing 2 to 3 presentations a week for temple construction site visitors, but due to the pandemic, those visits have been put on hold.
We haven't really had any visitors in our office up here probably since last March.
Right.
And we've done a couple of Zoom meetings with some of the wards, youth groups and things, but really it's really made being a missionary different.
It has.
Because the personal contact is really limited to what we can do now.
The Pruitts say they handed out goodie bags made by church members to show temple construction workers their appreciation through the holidays.
We actually last year had a dinner where we sat down together and had dinner together, but with COVID this year, we just can't do that. So we're going to do the next best thing, which is fill them full of sugar and cookies and other things.
Reporting from the construction site of the Pocatello Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple, I'm Deanne Coffin, KPVI, news that works for you.
And Elder Pruitt says the temple should be completed by next year. And still to come on this look back at 2020, we'll catch up with a local man whose message of good vibes went viral this year. That's coming up.
You're watching KPVI, news that works for you.
Welcome back to our look back at the 6 biggest Eastern Idaho news stories on 6 in 2020. Well, an Idaho Falls man on his way to work went viral, just vibing out and drinking juice. Nathan Apodaca, better known as Dogface 208, went from factory worker to social media star. KPVI News that works for you journalist Cesar Cornejo finds out what's going on with him now.
A man that was on his way to work, just vibing, went viral in late September on the social media platform TikTok. Nathan Apodaca, better known as Dogface 208, became internet famous almost overnight. His video not only went viral, but sparked many to create copycat videos of them riding around and drinking juice, with one of the more famous copycats being by Mick Fleetwood himself. But how did Dogface 208 even get on TikTok?
I ended up on TikTok when it's basically my daughter, my youngest daughter. She made the app for me, you know what I mean? She told me I can mess around on it if I want while they're gone in Montana with their mom and everything, because they stay with their mom in the school years and whatever. And yeah, like I said, I've just messed around with the app once in a while. Didn't really get too much into it, you know what I mean? I started out just lip singing and everything. Then after that, I started getting into it, dancing, when one of my videos went viral on my old account. It was doing the dance to the Get Up song or whatever it is, the viral dance or whatever it was. And yeah, after that, it kind of just skyrocketed from there, went to 136,000 followers, and I ended up losing my account. And then got it back in January 5th of this year. And then fast forward to now, I'm finally at 1 million.
He now has over 6 million followers on TikTok alone. Support from followers on social media came in the form of donations, in which he was not only able to help his own family, but also buy a new home.
When I started getting donations from my soldiers, you know, I was like surprised that was even coming, because I didn't ask for a handout, you know. They did it out of the kindness of their hearts. I want to say thank you to everybody that gave me anything, you know. It was just a blessing like no other. When I seen that number rise and rise, I started like thinking to myself, you know, okay, I'm blessed to get myself a new RV, you know, because I'm not an apartment type of guy, you know. Right. So then when it started rising to what I see now, I was like, okay, well, I can't be selfish. I'm going to have to spread this to my mom and my dad, you know. They're my mom and my dad. So then I did that. And then when it started getting more, like I said, it was just coming and coming, and it started getting higher and higher. Then I was like, okay, maybe I can bless my brothers and sisters with a little something, you know, and ask them if they needed anything, and whatever they needed, or, you know, just to put a smile on their face, I got it for them. Then I seen it keep going and going and going. Then I was like, what the heck's going on here? You know what I mean? I was like, I did not ask for this. It's just when I seen it get to the potential to where I could put a down payment on a house, that's when I was like, okay, I ain't spending no more money. I'm sorry to everybody, but I have to focus on something, you know, for me and my family, you know, my immediate family.
He also received a new truck from Ocean Spray, got to star in a commercial for KJ Superstores, and meet celebrities like Snoop Dogg. But even with all of this good fortune and luck occurring for Nathan, even he couldn't escape the pandemic.
Life's been good, you know what I mean? Life's been a trip. I've been open to more opportunities now, and just blessing upon blessing, you know, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the ride. It's just words can't explain it, you know what I mean? And then the bad part, you know, this COVID, you know, or whatever, you know, I just got knocked off with that on the 14th or whatever. But I think I got past the worst part of it. Hopefully I'm on my way out, you know what I mean? They said I have until the 21st to quarantine, and that's coming around the corner. I've been feeling a little bit more energy, feeling, you know, better in a way. Lungs still kind of feel a little congested, you know, but I'm just, you know, hanging in there and struggling and striving through with all the prayers that everybody's been sending me.
In Idaho Falls, Cesar Cornejo, KPVI, news that works for you.
Now, Dogface 208 plans on expanding his brand and even trying a career in rapping. Future projects he plans on working on include releasing merchandise through Zoomies, and that's in 2021, and opening up his own skate shop. While the event didn't happen in 2020, this year was a big anniversary for one of southeastern Idaho's biggest news stories ever. Kate Garner takes a look back at the 25th anniversary of Lagertown. We do have a warning for you that the story contains video of dead animals.
This is just one of more than a dozen big cats killed by authorities in September of 1995.
And we were lucky that we were able to save as much as we could.
Banana County, 2200.
In the late hours one Wednesday night, authorities responded to a call in Lava Hot Springs. A cat attacked the owners at a compound called Lagertown. Bannock County Sheriff Lauren Nilsson, then Chief Deputy Nilsson, was second on scene.
When I got there, Fever had been, you can tell that he'd been assaulted. He'd had a claw mark across his face.
Robert Feber and Dottie Martin sustained lacerations to the arms, hands, and face. EMTs treated both on scene and then took the pair to Pocatello Regional Medical Center. With the couple treated, authorities from the Sheriff Department, SWAT, Fish and Game, and Idaho State Troopers now feared for the safety of the community, as lions, tigers, and ligers had escaped the compound. However, the couple claimed that no cat escaped on its own.
They wanted them out. They cut holes and let them out so they could shoot them.
Authorities decided shooting all escaped cats to be the best way to keep the community safe.
They don't teach that at police academy. They don't teach anything. This was all brand new. It's sad that we had to take the lives of those others, but we all felt that there was a clear and present danger.
Authorities knew that danger would still be present the next day, and with a school bus stop nearby, law officials contacted school officials, who canceled class. The biggest problem authorities faced at the time, they didn't know how many cats were on the loose, because they didn't know how many cats the couple owned.
We have had people that have called us that said that they were inside the compound several months ago, and their counts go all the way up to 90.
After taking a count and speaking to Martin, authorities had a better idea of what they were looking at.
She called me back later and said, "You're right, Lauren, I think we did have 46, and that should be it." I hope she's telling the truth.
To be sure, a helicopter was brought in to look for escaped cats in the surrounding hills, and sharpshooters covered the area.
They are now covering the outside of the compound. Those are our sharpshooters.
At the end of the first day, authorities killed more than 12 big cats.
Now most all the white gene lions are wiped out, dead. Most of the black lanes have been shot. Yeah, you all should be real proud of yourselves.
To this day, Sheriff Nilsson says no officer took pride in killing any of the cats.
I don't think anybody that shot a lion felt like they'd just taken a trophy. They felt that this was something that this animal had no say-so in the matter.
Now coming up, whatever happened to the people who own Lagertown? We'll find out coming up next.
You're watching KPVI, news that works for you.
And welcome back to our look back at the 6 biggest news stories on 6 in 2020. Now, a few minutes ago, we showed you part 1 of our look back at the 25th anniversary of Lagertown. Now we find out what happened in the days after that the cats escaped the compound. Here again is Kate Gardner.
In September 1995, authorities from multiple agencies killed nearly 20 exotic cats that escaped the Lagertown compound in Lava Hot Springs. Bannock County Sheriff Lauren Nilsson says it's something law enforcement worried about for years leading up to the incident.
We have one of those meetings where what if, and what are we going to do if something happens here, because there was some issue, their power was shut off and a few other things that were going on. They were having trouble maintaining.
After authorities no longer worried any more escaped cats posed a threat to the public, they turned their attention to the dozens of big cats and hybrid wolves in the compound. It was then they realized the full extent of the couple's inability to keep up with the animals' needs.
The poor animals, whether their health, their teeth and stuff, they had not been eating a real good diet. They did not have a veterinarian come in there and check and see how they were doing. They were never meant to be somebody's pet.
It wasn't just the animals' health that alarmed authorities. The compound itself wasn't suited for housing large animals, nonetheless carnivores, which is something that stuck out to Chuck Hulls, who visited Lagertown as a teenager.
So the first thing that comes to mind, about visiting was the state of the fences. You're walking past bits of chicken wire and thinking there's not much between me and these animals.
And it wasn't just the state of the compound that left a lasting impression on the visitor.
I just remember pulling into the guy's driveway, and he's standing there, scars all over his arm, fairly fresh, scabbed over, and thinking, who is this guy?
The condition of both the animals and the compound led authorities to charging Robert Fieber and Dottie Martin with over 100 misdemeanors. Idaho didn't have any felony animal abuse charges at the time.
Those are misdemeanors. Each is punishable by a fine not less than $100 or more than $5,000, or jail up to 6 months.
Most of the charges were dropped, and the couple never served any jail time. A reporter interviewed the two and asked why they objected to the charges. Fieber's response:
"You're criminals." That'd be trifling murder. Oh, hell no, they're not right. Okay, get out.
Martin's reaction was similar.
Explain.
Okay. Turn that thing off.
Authorities allowed the two to leave the state without the threat of extradition. Standing here at the site of Lagertown 25 years later, it's almost impossible to imagine that this could happen in such a pretty place. And if you look behind me, you'll see that there really are no traces of the compound left. And that's because at the time, authorities burnt the place to the ground.
6 feet of feces. And if you've ever been in cat urine and cat, that's why they have cat boxes. The smell was horrendous.
County authorities worried about disease in the unsanitary compound. Waylon Reif bought the land where Lagertown once stood about 4 years ago, and traces of the past are still present.
There's a lot of bones. Every time you dig, you find bones,
A neighbor of the property and the sheriff both heard rumors that the couple moved back to Oregon. There is no evidence of where they moved to. And up until a month ago, Bannock County still had a warrant out for their arrest, which is now expired. 25 years later, the sheriff still has a wish for the couple.
Fiebers were brought to accountability, but unfortunately, with everything we went through, I don't think they ever were.
In Lava Hot Springs, I'm Cade Garner for KPVI News That Works for You.
Well, the Black Lives Matter movement made a major impact in 2020, from protests to riots to division among Americans, and a message that's still being delivered. KPVI News That Works for You journalist Julian Parras takes us back.
I believe that we will win. Nothing can. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
2020 has been a year filled with changes and obstacles, politics, the pandemic, and protests.
Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot!
But the Black Lives Matter movement has left a footprint on this year, particularly, both nationally and locally.
The only overdose that killed George Floyd was an overdose of excessive force and racism.
It was May 25th of 2020 when George Floyd was killed while in police custody. What followed was a reaction unique to anything else. Protests, riots, and conflict. And the realization that the United States showed signs of division between support for those who are sworn to protect and serve and a battle against systemic racism. The influence and message of the Black Lives Matter protest eventually made its way to the Gem State.
I love being down by the Cranberry Bridge with our signs, with our common spirit of unity and promoting diversity, fighting against racism and discrimination.
Dennis Patterson, an author of his book, Black Pearl, Living Black in Idaho, was one of many people who attended the protests earlier this year. He said it was incredible to see the amount of support, especially from the younger generation.
Amazing to see the number of young people out protesting against police brutality, against any types of racism or discrimination.
Regardless of the person, black or white, a number of people resonated with this message.
With all of the ugly that we've seen come out of this movement, we've also seen a lot of really beautiful, inspiring things, and I love that.
Kimberly Zweigart is an activist based out of Idaho Falls. She's organized a few marches and protests of her own, including a Black Lives Matter march back in September.
It's just a passion. I just think that humans should be treated equally.
But in the midst of this movement, groups like the Proud Boys have found the movement to be unappealing. Many have contradicted it by stating things such as all lives matter.
Well, obviously, we want them to all matter, but but our system is not treating them like that.
But not all lives have been taken into consideration until this year. It didn't end with George Floyd. There was also Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Ahmaud Arbery, dozens more.
This isn't the America we want. This isn't the symbol or the representation of America that we want the world to see.
But in light of the situation 2020 has been, it's served as a piece of history and a lesson.
I think that it is important for us to see the police brutality that happens.
So 2020, as tragic as it's been, I believe that the Black Lives Matter movement has been one of those bright spots in America and locally.
And the local community has noticed the importance of it as well, whether it be the people or its community leaders.
Vow to keep us as officers accountable to each other. Keep us accountable as a service to this community.
It was also those leaders who recognized real leadership being taken.
This is leadership. Yes. And tough times requires leadership.
Though the Black Lives Matter movement has been established for years now, 2020 seemed to have brought out some hope for people moving forward.
Hope, new opportunity, and a more fair, justice system.
Really, like, if we can unite as one, like, we're gonna see a change happen instead of fighting against each other.
For KPVI News that works for you, I'm Julian Parras reporting.
Protests and demonstrations for Black Lives Matter was so widespread, all 50 states participated in the movement this year. Downed trees, power lines, and property damage were the headlines after Labor Day, and now the cleanup begun for eastern Idaho and western Wyoming. The winds were felt by everyone on Labor Day, from damage and downed trees being the most common. KPVI News that works for you meteorologist Cesar Cornejo recaps how widespread the damage really was.
As a cold front raced through the interior northwest, many in eastern Idaho and western Wyoming felt wind gusts reaching severe level strength. These wind gusts arrived at the Idaho-Montana border in the early afternoon, later reaching the Snake River Plain. Alex DeSmet, meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Pocatello, explains how fast the cold front moved over us.
So in the span of just a few hours, it traveled from the Montana border all the way through our forecast area, all the way down into Utah.
The initial strong winds occurred in the afternoon and evening time, but a second wind maximum picked up during the overnight hours.
We actually did record a secondary wind gust maximum, I believe, to 62 miles per hour at the Pocatello Airport, sometime around midnight, I believe it was.
Due to this secondary wind event, issues arose for electrical line workers and the Pocatello Fire Department. Kim Stouse, Community Relations Education Specialist for the Fire Department, mentions how late dispatch was getting calls.
So the first call that we received for a down power line it came in at 5:18, and from there it just came nonstop. It went until just after 3 a.m. this morning.
Dispatch handled 34 calls in the span of 10 hours due to the strong damaging winds on Labor Day. Now as the winds begin to die down and cleanup efforts are beginning, thousands are still without electricity as both Idaho Power and Rocky Mountain Power crews work around the clock to restore power to residents left in the dark. In Pocatello, Cesar Cornejo, KPVI, news that works for you.
And after the storm ripped through Idaho and Wyoming, Utah received some of the strongest winds, with gusts reaching close to 100 miles per hour. Well, we still have two more of the biggest 6 stories on 6 in 2020, and our next local story made headlines around the world. That's coming up next.
You're watching KPVI, news that works for you.
And welcome back to our look back at the 6 biggest local stories on 6 in the year 2020. And as the year 2019 was winding down, we started to follow the case of 2 missing children out of Rexburg. And as we began 2020, it soon became clear that the Thevalo Daybell case was bigger than anything we could have imagined. KPVI News that works for you journalist Kate Garner gives us a look back at some of the more important dates in the case over the last 15 months.
On September 8th, 2019, Tylee Ryan was in Yellowstone National Park with her brother, J.J. Thevalo, her uncle, Alex Cox, and her mom, Lori Thevalo. This was the last time the teenager was seen alive. On September 17th last year, a Ring doorbell captured 7-year-old J.J. Vallow playing with a friend outside Lori Vallow's townhome in Rexburg. On September 23rd, J.J. attended class at Kennedy Elementary. That is the last time he was seen alive. On November 5th, Chad Daybell and Lori are married in Hawaii. On November 26th, Detective David Stubbs and Lieutenant David Ball conducted a welfare check for JJ at Lori's Rexburg apartment after his grandparents, the Woodcocks, reached out to police.
Who's the friend he's with?
My friend Melanie. Her son has autism.
We now know this was a lie. The next day, the couple is gone. And on December 1st, they return to Hawaii. The kids are not with them. On December 20th, police announced the disappearance of Tylee and JJ and asked the public for help. On January 5th, Tylee's older brother, Colby Ryan, takes to YouTube, pleading with Lori to do the right thing.
You have the power to end this. You have an opportunity to put this all to rest.
On January 7th, JJ's grandparents hold a press conference with a reward for information leading to the discovery of the two kids.
We're here to offer a $20,000 reward. These are beautiful young children. They're two extremely intelligent young children, and we want them back. We want them back in our family.
On January 25th, Lori is served in Hawaii with an order to produce the children by the end of the month. She does not. On February 25th, she's arrested and held on a $5 million bond. On March 5th, she's brought back to Rexburg. On that day, the Salt Lake City FBI tweets out the Yellowstone pictures and asks the public for additional photos of the kids. In Idaho, Lori is held on a $1 million bond. On May 25th, JJ and Tylee's older brother, Colby Ryan, takes to YouTube once again to directly speak to JJ on his birthday.
I feel like that's one of your main spiritual gifts is just joy. You just walk into a room and just make people attracted to the light that you are. People see that you are just such a beautiful person, JJ. You just make people happy.
On June 9th, law enforcement searches Chad Daybell's Salem property. He is arrested.
During the search of the property, investigators discovered what appeared to be unidentified human remains, and an autopsy will be conducted.
The autopsy confirmed those remains to be of both Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. Jump ahead to August 3rd and 4th. Chad Daybell has his preliminary hearing in Fremont County. The state called many witnesses, including a Rexburg police detective who described the horrific manner in which the children's bodies were found.
Initially, as soon as they removed the paneling, I could smell the odor of a decomposing body.
Days later, on August 6th, Lori Vallow appears in court and waives her preliminary hearing. 2 months after that, on October 29th, Chad Daybell appeared before Judge Stephen Boyce via Zoom to object to combining his and Lori's trials. After hearing arguments from the defense and prosecution, Judge Boyce made his decision.
I am going to grant the motion to join at this time. As the parties indicated, that doesn't forego the possibility of a future motion for severance if prejudice is demonstrated by the defense in support of that motion.
The defense currently argues a fair jury cannot be found in the 7th Judicial District, and a hearing for change of venue is scheduled for January 6th, 2021. Reporting for KPVI News That Works For You, I'm Kate Garner.
And at this time, Lori and Chad Daybell are facing multiple felony charges, none of which include murder charges. We're in the home stretch. A look at the biggest news stories of 2020. We'll have the big one coming up. And welcome back. A local wrestler spent 2020 breaking down barriers. In September, the Idaho High School Activities Association voted to sanction girls wrestling, and Kyler Scott was all over it. Here's Corinne McGrath.
Very, very proud that she decided to go into wrestling, even though I kind of thought she wouldn't. In fact, even said no the first time she asked me.
Like most little kids, Kyler Scott tried all kinds of sports and activities when she was younger, but none of them compared to her love for wrestling.
We went to a tournament at Holt Arena, and At that tournament, there's roughly 700 kids wrestling. Out of that 700, there were about 14 girls.
And I asked my dad if I could wrestle, and he told me no. And so then we went the year after that, and I finally got him to tell me yes, because I pointed out all the other girls that were wrestling there.
Dad, that girl wrestling. That girl's wrestling. And I was like, baby, if you want to wrestle, let's go do it.
Now 13 years old, Kyler competes for Team Subline Wrestling Club as well as the Franklin Middle School team, where she wrestles both male and female opponents, as there's no separate girls division.
All of my coaches have said that I've always had to work harder than the boys, just because they're going to get stronger and better, so I have to become faster and learn how to do more.
And that hard work has paid off, as this weekend she won the All-City Finals.
Making history. Your big sister making history.
Kyler hopes that this win will encourage other girls to come out and give wrestling a try.
Just try it and don't be afraid to do it. It's awesome.
For Kyler, wrestling has taught her that she can do anything she puts her mind to.
Well, I definitely want to wrestle in college. That would be awesome. If I get there, Olympics, that would be great. But yeah, I really hope that they get middle school to have their own girls division.
And she's proof that the sport teaches girls skills both on and off the mat.
You know, I'm fearful of everything with girls, you know, and having her know how to take care of herself and be tough and the being in really good shape all the time and she's just, you know, very, very confident young lady, and it's been awesome.
We are now at the biggest Eastern Idaho news story of the year, and there was no bigger story that dominated all of our lives than the coronavirus. It's been a year full of loss, conflict, changes, and many stories of neighbor helping neighbor. And the thing that started it all, the coronavirus. The virus sparked a worldwide pandemic, and the Gem State was affected just like everywhere else. KPVI News at Works For You journalist Misty Englert recaps the important milestones of COVID-19 in Idaho.
March 13th, 2020, the date that would change the lives of every Idahoan. That was the day the first COVID-19 case was confirmed in Idaho, making it the second to last state to report a case. Locally, Southeastern Idaho Public Health would confirm its first case in Bingham County on March 20th. Bannock County followed close behind, reporting its first cases just 3 days later.
Ensure that you are taking steps that help protect everyone around you.
On March 26th, 13 days after the first case in the state was reported, Idaho confirmed its first 3 coronavirus-related deaths. Eastern Idaho would fare better, with SIF not reporting any COVID-19 deaths until June 1st.
The situation with coronavirus is changing hourly.
Around the time of the first reported deaths in Idaho, Governor Brad Little took action to try and prevent the virus's spread early on. On March 25th, he issued a statewide stay-at-home order, which would later be extended through April.
I know this situation is very hard on a lot of Idahoans. I urge us all to think about each other right now.
On April 28th, the governor announced his Idaho Rebounds Plan, a 4-stage approach aimed at reopening Idaho's economy while still minimizing the risks of COVID-19. Stage 1 was launched.
I think the most important thing we're doing is adding certainty. We're saying, given the criteria that we are going to put out, if X happens, the public are going to get to do Y.
In early May, Idaho was moved forward into Stage 2 and then quickly progressed to Stage 3 by late May.
Today I am pleased to announce that we have met the criteria to enter Stage 3.
On June 11th, we were moved to the final stage of reopening.
On Saturday, 100% of businesses will be able to open their doors as we enter Stage 4.
Also in June, some good news for Idahoans. Governor Little announced $100 million would be given out as back-to-work bonuses. $1,500 payments were made available to full-time workers as an incentive to get off unemployment and back in the workplace.
No other state in the country is putting up a larger amount from the Coronavirus Relief Fund.
But the silver linings would darken again in July as Idaho surpassed 100 total deaths. Then, in August, 2 of Eastern Idaho's largest jails reported their first COVID cases, Bonneville and Bannock.
Every one of us here working here understood that it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when.
Fast forward to October. Idaho has now surpassed a death toll of 500. Because of rising case counts, the governor rolled the state back to Stage 3 on October 26th.
The disease is still here. It is still circulating in the state.
Just 2 weeks later, on November 13th, Idaho was rolled back another stage, and the governor activated the National Guard to help with coronavirus response. More Idaho Guardsmen would be called for in early December as the statewide case count tops 100,000. In eastern Idaho, SIF surpassed 100 deaths in mid-December. Finally, on December 15th, the first doses of a COVID-19 vaccine arrived in Idaho. The first vaccination went to a doctor in Rexburg. Misty Inglet, KPVI, news that works for you.
And that concludes our look at what happened in 2020. From all of us at KPVI, we wish you all the best in 2021. Take care.